I never imagined that the soft click of a bedroom door could shatter a lifetime of sisterhood, but the night I heard it, half open, whispering with shadows and secrets, something inside me cracked. I remember standing in the hallway barefoot on the cold hardwood, clutching a mug of cooling tea as if it could steady me. The sound of low laughter drifted out from behind the door, a laughter I knew too well, but twisted by a tone that didn't belong. It was my boyfriend's voice, Daniel's, blended with my sister's, Charlotte's. At first I thought I was mishearing, that exhaustion was turning the sounds into something else, that my mind was trying to wound me. But then I heard her soft gasp, the one she always gave when she pretended to be surprised but was secretly delighted. I froze. Not because I wasn't prepared for betrayal. I suppose a part of me always suspected Charlotte of being capable of anything if it meant she got what she wanted. But because this particular betrayal carved through me in a way I could never have anticipated. Daniel had been my anchor through our parents' bitter separation, the one person I trusted to stay. And Charlotte. She'd always taken shortcuts in life, always manipulated situations so that she emerged adored, pitied, rescued, whatever suited her in the moment. I used to believe she would never deliberately destroy something that mattered to me. Hearing their voices together extinguished that last illusion. I backed away from the door, retreating as quietly as my trembling legs allowed. My mind was already spinning through every conversation I'd had with both of them in the past few weeks. The sudden distance in Daniel's eyes, the strangely persistent questions Charlotte had asked about our arguments, the way she lingered around him even when she didn't need to. I remembered the night she insisted Daniel stay for dinner because you two need to talk things out, and how she touched his arm just a little too long when passing him a plate. I remembered Daniel's silence on the drive home afterward, the way he gripped the steering wheel as if he were trying to hold on to some decision he hadn't yet confessed. I slipped into my room and closed the door behind me with a controlled, nearly soundless motion. My breath shook as I leaned against the wall, and in that moment I realized that I wasn't crying. My chest was burning, my throat tight, but no tears came. Not yet. Instead, I felt something colder rising, a clarity I hadn't expected, a kind of stillness that told me this was not an ending, not yet. I listened to the muffled voices on the other side of the house, and rather than collapsing under their weight, I started to think. Not about how to win Daniel back. I felt nothing but a dull ache where love for him had been. Not about confronting Charlotte with screaming accusations. She would only twist my words and turn herself into the victim. Instead, I thought about truth. The thing she feared most. For years I had protected her secret, the one she had begged me to keep when she was 17. It wasn't something illegal or catastrophic, but it was something she had sworn would ruin her if anyone found out. I used to believe keeping it hidden was an act of sisterly loyalty. Now I saw it for what it really was. Leverage I had never intended to hold. I sank onto my bed, the mattress dipping under my weight, and finally allowed myself to whisper, "Why?" The word came out choked. Barely audible. Why Daniel? Why now? Why like this? Had she always envied what I had? Or had sabotage simply become her way of feeling powerful? I remembered all the times she had smiled at me, swearing she wanted me to be happy, yet somehow always inserting herself where she didn't belong. I used to chalk it up to immaturity. Now it looked more like a pattern. Maybe she didn't just want things, I realized. Maybe she wanted mine. As the night deepened, I forced myself to breathe steadily. I let the first wave of hurt wash over me, sharp and raw, but I didn't let it drown me. I needed a plan, and I needed patience. The kind of patience Charlotte assumed I lacked. In the morning, Charlotte emerged from her room with the performance-ready brightness she used to charm every teacher, every friend, every boyfriend she'd ever taken from someone else. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy checking her reflection in her phone screen, smoothing a strand of hair into place. When she finally noticed me at the kitchen counter, she hesitated for only the briefest second before smiling with an innocence so polished I almost admired the craftsmanship. "Morning," she said lightly. "You're up early." I sipped my coffee, keeping my expression neutral. "Couldn't sleep." She nodded sympathetically, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of something. Wariness, perhaps, or the faintest trace of guilt she would never fully acknowledge. "You okay? You look tired." "I am," I answered. "But I'll manage." She opened the fridge, retrieving almond milk she'd pretended to like because Daniel once said he preferred it. Her voice was casual when she asked, "Are you and Daniel doing better?" I know things were tense. There it was, the probing, the invitation for me to confess weakness, to give her more information to use. I set the mug down slowly. We had a long conversation last night. That much was true, even if the conversation existed only in my mind. My quiet realization that our relationship was over. Charlotte's grip tightened on the carton. Oh, what kind of conversation? One that clarified things, I said. For everyone. I watched her face carefully. She blinked, calculating, as though weighing how much I knew. But Charlotte had always relied on certainty to maintain her advantage, and my composure unsettled her. She poured the milk into her glass with slightly trembling hands. Well, relationships can be complicated, she said. I'm sure you'll work it out. I smiled, small but controlled. Eventually, but maybe not in the way you expect. She froze, just for a moment. Then she recovered with a nervous laugh. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said softly. Not yet. Later that day, Daniel texted me. We need to talk. The words should have hurt, but instead they steeled me. I didn't respond. I wanted him to wait, to sit with the discomfort he had earned. I wanted Charlotte to feel the pressure building in the silence between us, and most of all, I wanted the truth, the one she had buried so desperately, to become the one thing she could no longer control. But timing mattered. Revealing her secret impulsively would only make me look vindictive. I needed to set the stage slowly, make sure each action nudged her toward the unraveling without me ever lifting my voice. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling as I listened to the quiet hum of the house. My mind moved through memories of childhood, of shared rooms, shared birthdays, shared parents who always told me to look out for your sister. She's fragile. Maybe she had been once, but fragility had turned into manipulation long ago, and I was done being her shield. The plan began taking shape, subtle, deliberate, undeniable. By the time sleep finally crept in, I felt something close to resolve anchoring me. Revenge didn't have to be loud, it just had to be true. And Charlotte's truth had been hiding in the dark for far too long. I woke before dawn, the pale blue of the sky barely seeping past the curtains, and for a moment, I lay still, listening to the muffled quiet of the house. I could hear Charlotte's faint snoring through the wall, soft and almost childlike. It would have been endearing once. Now it only reminded me how effortlessly she slept while I lay awake, piecing my life back together. I rose, dressed, and started making coffee, forcing my hands to remain steady even as the pressure of what I intended to do tightened behind my ribs. By the time Charlotte stumbled into the kitchen in her oversized robe, rubbing her eyes like she hadn't shattered someone the night before, I had already rehearsed my entire morning. She paused when she saw me again, same calm expression, same collected silence. I knew it unnerved her. You're up early again, she said, her voice hoarse. I've been thinking, I replied. She froze mid-yawn. About what? Family, I said, letting the words sit heavily. How we're supposed to protect each other. She laughed nervously, adjusting the robe as if hiding in it could shield her from what she sensed approaching. You're being weird. Is this about Daniel? Did you two break up? I looked at her slowly. We're in a transition. But you already knew that, didn't you? Her face drained, but she recovered quickly, offering a breezy, practiced smile. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, I said. Not yet. Charlotte's shoulders tightened. She busied herself with making tea, but her hands shook enough that she spilled sugar on the counter. She didn't bother to wipe it. She was waiting for me to strike. I didn't. Not that morning. Revenge needed time. Time for her nerves to fray, for her confidence to crack, for the truth to grow heavier than her lies. I left for work earlier than usual, ignoring the 3 unread messages from Daniel that blinked stubbornly on my phone. Each one was a variation of the same plea. We need to talk. I should have told you sooner. Please, just meet me. I didn't answer. I needed him to feel the weight of silence. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. He had made a choice, and I was simply offering him the consequences he'd tried to avoid. At the office, I kept myself composed, though my mind never drifted far from Charlotte's secret. It wasn't something unspeakable, but it was something that would obliterate the perfect image she had built, something she had sworn would destroy her credibility, her friendships, her carefully curated persona as the responsible, flawless one. When we were younger, she had trusted me to bury it for her. I had. For years, I had held it like a fragile thing. Now I realized it had been a chain around my neck. But I didn't intend to weaponize it recklessly. I needed precision. I needed to place it where it would unravel her lies in a clean, undeniable line. The first step was gentle, a message to an old friend of hers, someone I knew had drifted after Charlotte had lied about her to maintain favor in their group. I didn't reveal the secret. I didn't even hint at it. Instead, I asked an innocent question. Have you spoken to Charlotte recently? She's been on my mind. The bait was subtle. Predictable, though, the friend responded instantly, eager to vent old frustrations. I let her. I encouraged nothing. I simply listened, nodded, and offered sympathy where appropriate. And when she asked if everything was okay between my sister and me, I said only, we're redefining what honesty means. The seed was planted. When I returned home that evening, Charlotte greeted me with forced cheerfulness. Dinner's almost ready. I made pasta. You never make pasta, I said. I thought it'd be nice. Nice. Her attempts at normalcy were almost sad. But I let her pretend. I sat at the table, twirling the food she'd carefully prepared, watching the tension pulse through her every movement. Did you talk to Daniel? She asked casually. No. She looked relieved. Too relieved. Well, you should. Communication is important. And secrets? I asked. Are they important too? She dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the plate, and for a moment she simply stared at me, the color draining from her face. What secrets? I'm sure you'll remember, I said quietly. If you think hard enough. She was silent for the rest of dinner. Later, she knocked on my bedroom door, her voice oddly small. Can we talk? I opened it and stepped aside, watching her pace nervously once inside. She twisted the edge of her sleeve, something she only did when she felt cornered. I feel like you're angry with me, she began, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. I don't know what I did, but I let her speak. I let her spiral into explanations she didn't truly believe, excuses she couldn't justify. When she finally stopped to take a breath, I cut in. I'm not angry, I said. I'm aware. She blinked rapidly. Aware of what? Aware of everything. She swallowed. Hard. If this is about Daniel, you're overthinking things. Am I? He and I are just friends. A remarkable friendship. One you keep behind closed doors. Her lips parted, then closed tightly. She backed up a step, shaking her head as if denial could physically shield her. You have no proof. I don't need proof, I replied. I have clarity. She stared at me, terrified now because she'd never heard that tone from me. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was calm, and calm, from me, was more threatening to her than fury ever could be. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Charlotte, I kept your secret for 7 years. I protected you even when you didn't deserve it. Do you really think I'm incapable of protecting myself now? Her entire body stiffened. You wouldn't I? The truth was, I still wasn't sure how far I would go, but she didn't need to know that. For the next 3 days, she followed me like a shadow. She hovered in doorways, tried to engage me in small talk, even attempted an apology that dissolved into defensive rambling. She didn't ask about the secret directly. She didn't dare, but every time she met my eyes, fear flickered through her. Daniel tried calling me again. I let it ring. On the 4th day, while Charlotte lingered in the hallway pretending to search for her keys, I made a small, calculated move. I opened my old photo box, something she knew I rarely touched, and spread a few items on the dining table. One of them was the envelope containing the truth she'd been terrified of resurfacing. I didn't leave it open. I didn't leave it exposed. I simply placed it there, in clear view, and walked away as if it meant nothing. 30 seconds later, I heard the soft intake of her breath as she spotted it, then the frantic rustle as she checked whether it was still sealed. It was. But the panic in her movements told me everything. How did this get here? She demanded, chasing me into the living room. I was reminiscing, I said. Is something wrong? You know what's wrong. I tilted my head. Do I? That's when she broke. Tears spilled instantly, uncontrolled, as she grabbed my arm with a desperation I had never seen from her. Please, she whispered. You can't let anyone see that. You promised. And you promised to never betray me, I answered softly. Yet here we are. She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I made a mistake, she sobbed. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know. I liked the attention. I liked feeling chosen. I didn't think you'd find out. Her voice trembled with a sincerity that might have moved me once, but now it only confirmed what I already knew. She liked taking, not caring. I sat beside her. For the first time in years, you're being honest, I said. That's good. Honesty is healing. She lifted her tear-streaked face. So, you won't? I didn't answer. I let silence gnaw at her until she trembled again. You don't understand, she whispered. If people find out everything I built, everything I am, everything you pretend to be, I corrected. She inhaled sharply. Charlotte, I said, for once in your life, you will face the consequences of your choices, not because I'm trying to destroy you, but because I'm done protecting you. Her lips quivered. What are you going to do? I stood, gathering the envelope and holding it carefully. Nothing yet, I said. But soon, the truth will find its place. She reached for me, but I stepped out of her grasp. That night, she didn't sleep. I heard her pacing, crying, whispering panicked monologues into her phone, likely deleting each message before sending. Her fear was growing, her facade cracking, and the secret she had buried was beginning to suffocate her. I slipped the envelope into my bag and lay in bed, my eyes open in the dark, my heartbeat steady. The plan was complete. The stage was set. Her unraveling was no longer in my hands. It was simply inevitable. All that remained was to decide the final moment, and I knew exactly when it would come. But timing mattered. Revealing her secret impulsively would only make me look vindictive. I needed to set the stage slowly, make sure each action nudged her toward the unraveling without me ever lifting my voice. That night I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling as I listened to the quiet hum of the house. My mind moved through memories of childhood, of shared rooms, shared birthdays, shared parents who always told me to look out for your sister. She's fragile. Maybe she had been once. But fragility had turned into manipulation long ago, and I was done being her shield. The plan began taking shape, subtle, deliberate, undeniable. By the time sleep finally crept in, I felt something close to resolve anchoring me. Revenge didn't have to be loud, it just had to be true, and Charlotte's truth had been hiding in the dark for far too long. The decision settled over me the next morning, firm and unwavering. I didn't rush. I didn't let adrenaline guide me. Instead, I let the quiet calm of inevitability shape every movement as I dressed, layered my hair neatly, and placed the envelope inside my bag with a care that bordered on ceremonial. I was not planning a spectacle. I was planning clarity, something my sister had avoided her entire life. Charlotte was sitting at the kitchen table when I emerged, still in the clothes she'd worn yesterday, her hair mussed, eyes rimmed red. She looked up quickly, panic flaring in her expression as though she expected me to produce the envelope right there and then, to hold it up like a verdict waiting to fall. But I only walked to the sink, poured a glass of water, and drank it slowly. Are you going somewhere? She asked, voice cracking. Yes, I said. Where? To have a conversation. She stood so abruptly the chair scraped the floor. With who? I didn't answer. The truth would only worsen her panic, and I needed her fear to simmer rather than explode. She followed me to the door, reaching out as if to grab my arm, but stopping herself at the last second. Please, she whispered. If you show anyone, just tell me what you want. I'll do anything. I'll apologize to you and to Daniel. I'll never speak to him again. I'll fix everything. You can't fix everything, I said quietly, but you can stop running from it. Her lips parted in a silent plea, but I left before she could form words, letting the door click shut behind me, a sound that must have echoed like a countdown in her mind. I wasn't meeting Daniel, not yet. Instead, I drove across town to a small cafe where an old mutual acquaintance of ours, Elise, was already waiting. Elise was one of the few people who had ever questioned Charlotte's curated persona. Years ago, Charlotte had spread a lie that damaged Elise's reputation simply to maintain her own standing. The two had barely spoken since, but Elise still remembered. She looked up as I approached. You said you needed to talk about your sister. I slid into the seat opposite her, folding my hands on the table. I need to talk about truth, I said. Her eyebrows lifted. That sounds serious. It is. For a moment, I considered pulling out the envelope, but I didn't. The point was not to expose Charlotte in a single dramatic moment. It was to allow the truth to breathe, to give it air after years of suffocation. So I spoke instead, not about the secret itself, but about the patterns, the betrayals, the years of manipulation Charlotte had inflicted on everyone around her. Something in the way Elise listened, leaning forward with a mixture of curiosity and vindication, told me she had always sensed the fractures behind Charlotte's perfection. At one point she asked, Does this have to do with your boyfriend? My ex-boyfriend, I corrected. And yes. I didn't tell her the details. I didn't need to. By the time we finished our conversation, Elise wasn't just aware, she was awake. She wasn't a gossip, but she was honest, direct, and deeply connected to a network of people who had been quietly hurt by Charlotte over the years. I didn't instruct her to do anything. I didn't even ask. I simply let truth do what truth naturally does when freed. By the time I walked back to my car, the weight on my chest felt lighter, not because revenge was complete, but because it no longer relied on me alone. The truth was now in motion, and motion was all it needed. Daniel called again. This time, I answered. "Thank you," he said immediately, sounding relieved. I wanted to explain. "I know," I said, "but not over the phone." He offered to meet at a park we frequented, a quiet place with worn benches and a small pond where children tossed bread to ducks. When I arrived, he was already there, pacing with his hands shoved into his jacket pockets. He looked up, guilt carved into his expression, and for the first time I felt nothing for him. Not anger, not love, just distance. "I'm sorry," he said before I even reached him. "I should have told you. I should have ended things properly before you slept with her," I finished. He flinched. "Yes." We sat. He explained everything. The confusion, the temptation, the excuses that all sounded hollow even as he tried to give them shape. When he finished, he exhaled heavily, as though confession had granted him peace. "Are you hoping for forgiveness?" I asked. "I'm hoping for honesty," he said, "and closure." Closure. It was a word I never realized I wanted to hear until he said it. "I loved you," I admitted. "But the version of you I loved doesn't exist anymore, and the version of me who tolerated this, she's gone too." He nodded slowly, accepting what he should have expected. "Does your sister know you're here?" "No." "Is she okay?" "She's beginning to be," I said, in a way she never expected. We parted with a quiet understanding. I didn't hate him. I didn't need to. He had already lost more than he realized. When I returned home, I found Charlotte sitting on the living room floor, her phone discarded beside her, her eyes wild with exhaustion. She sprang to her feet the moment I walked in. "People are asking questions," she said frantically. "Elise called me, and Claire messaged me, and someone from work hinted at something. They think I did something wrong. Did you tell them?"